Hello, my name is Marc Davenport, the Wealth Strategist. I am the CEO of RMI Capital in Houston, Texas. And welcome to Straight to the Top. Every Tuesday, we bring you great thought leaders, innovators, influencers, and disruptors from around the country. This is where the action is every Tuesday on Straight to the Top. Stay tuned. We have a fabulous show. We have an amazing guest, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Straight to the Top. We have another great guest tonight and a fabulous show. And on that note, I'd like to introduce attorney Felix Chevalier. Welcome to Straight to the Top.
Thank you for having me back.
Where are you from?
New York.
A train or the D train?
Actually, I primarily rode the 2 and the 4 train.
Okay. So we're still not going to cut Heath Butler any slack, though, right?
He gets no slack.
So you have a big story. There's a lot that you have done. I consider you one of Houston's most influential people. I want you to take a step back, hit the rewind button, and let's talk about your journey. Is that fair?
Sure. So I guess starting from the beginning, Felix Chevalier. I had the Latin first name because both of my parents are from Cuba. The French last name Chevalier because my father was born in Haiti, raised in Cuba, hence the Latin and French name. In my household growing up as a kid, both of my parents spoke Spanish, so I only knew Spanish until I was about 5 years old, until I started going to public school. I grew up in the South Bronx, New York, which unfortunately to this very day still it holds the record for being the most impoverished or economically depressed county in the United States. And it was that way since I grew up there. I have plenty of stories growing up in the South Bronx.
I'm sure.
So I went to school there. I went to DeWitt Clinton High School, which is in the northern section of the Bronx. I went to the State University of New York, college at New Paltz, which is about 2 hours north of New York City. And then I went to St. John's School of Law, which is in Queens, New York. I'll tell you a story that has really been an inflection point in my life. When I went to college, I pledged my freshman year, which, as you know, you're not supposed to do, but I did it anyway. And the first semester of my second year of college, we have a chapter meeting, and guy who was my dean, and I pledged Alpha, as you know, we have a chapter meeting. He says, hey, you guys are going to all run for student association.
Wow.
And he was the first African American student body president. This is a predominantly white institution. So he tells us what position we're going to run for. He says, he tells me to run for executive vice president of the student association. He has the same conversation with some of the other Black Greek organizations at the school. We all run and we all win.
Really?
Yes. $800,000 budget. And it was fascinating because we then learned how to really run a major budget. $800,000 when you're 18, 19 years old is significant. Right. And we learned the process of how politics works. It was a great experience. As a result of that, I had the opportunity to automatically be a member of the United States Student Association. It just so happened that the United States Student Association was facilitating an exchange program between Cuban students and American students. And as you can imagine, hundreds of students were applying for this opportunity. I was one of many to apply and was very, very fortunate enough to be selected to be one of 13 or 14 students across the United States to get to go to Cuba. As you can imagine, as a kid, I heard millions of stories from my parents about Cuba, but it was nothing like experiencing it.
Right.
It was frankly a paradigm shift for me. And so I still go to Cuba back and forth. My mother goes every year, helping out family and friends, going back there. But that was a very pivotal experience for me. Fast forward, I went to St. John's Law School. After law school, of course, took the New York, New Jersey bar exams, passed those, moved to Texas, and started working at a couple of companies. Worked at a law firm doing commercial litigation work, which was good. I was good at it, but I realized I didn't enjoy it.
Okay.
And
it was work.
It was work. It was work. But it didn't really fit my personality because to me it wasn't really meaningful. At least just for me, it just didn't really fit my personality. At the time, I was helping people who had all these businesses but couldn't afford to pay the hourly rates of the firm I was working at, and so I would actually do the work for them for free. And that experience gave me access to a lot of entrepreneurs, and it also taught me how to do transactional work because I was doing it for free, and my friends knew I was doing it for free. And so around that same time, some friends and I started a political action committee as a result of the Swift Boat ad that knocked out John Kerry out of the presidential debate. This is in '04. And a friend of mine started a group called Steaks and Stokies, Odell Wynn. And Odell just convened a group of guys, maybe 8 of us, got together, went to Morton Steakhouse, and that gathering went pretty well. We decided to have it again, and we invited a few more guys and a few more guys, and it grew. So shortly thereafter, I actually started my own law practice, and I completely transitioned to doing transactional work, where I was essentially working with companies who were starting off, either buying businesses, selling businesses, helping them actually file their businesses, vendor agreements, any kind of transactional work that they needed, I would handle. And my business really took a major shift when I started to get even more active politically, to the point that my transactional practice really transitioned into a government affairs practice as a result of all the political relationships we developed.
Great story. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Straight to the Top. Felix, that's a great story. And before we went to the break, you were talking about all of the work, the experience that you got working with entrepreneurs. And you were into the weeds. So you're an attorney that is now working for entrepreneurs doing a lot of transactional business. So, for example, a buy-sell agreement, a lot of people know what that is. But to actually rep someone who's buying or selling a business is a totally different interaction. So before we move forward, would you like to take a step back and just maybe touch on that a bit?
Sure. So in my practice, when I left the law firm to start my own practice and primarily focused on transactional work, I essentially was the general counsel for small businesses, even startups. So I saw the business from a very comprehensive perspective. It wasn't just the buy-sell agreement, it was everything associated and related to the buy-sell agreement. And because I had a commercial litigation background, I had a completely different lens at how I looked at transactional deals because I had a more protective way of analyzing deals to avoid clients from getting into litigation.
Trouble.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
So I have a question. Were there some specific characteristics or traits that would jump out at you when you were working with your clients? In other words, because of the way that some people were going about their business, did you begin to see patterns between the people you knew who were going to be successful and the ones that you didn't think were going to make it?
Yes, that's real easy.
Okay.
Coachability.
Say that again?
Coachability.
Keith talked about that a little bit too.
Yes. So most people will listen to their lawyers when the lawyers are giving them legal advice.
Right.
And the entrepreneurs who listen to not only their lawyers but other advisors are the ones who tend to do well. Lawyers is one of the advisors. Some entrepreneurs will be stubborn because they will be dogmatic about doing things a certain way, even though they may save a penny today, but they're losing $10 down the road.
Right.
And so I would say coachability is the most important factor in successful entrepreneurs.
Why are certain people, or why are some people just stubborn or resistant to change? Is it the Mr. Know-it-all attitude? Is it just a lack of professional maturity? What do you think prevents people from simply understanding that their way isn't necessarily always going to be the right way?
So ego plays a role. Sometimes fear also plays a role. I think the biggest problem is people fear losing control. And so oftentimes people refer to their businesses as their baby, and they don't want to let their baby go. But we all know, particularly those of us who are parents, that the only way you can really successfully be a parent is to make sure that you are producing a human being who starts off as a child,
Right.
who at one point will become a successful independent adult. And we have to look at our businesses that way. We have to be able to look at our businesses in a way where it should be able to stand up on its own. And if you hold on to it so long, you'll never enable the business to stand on its own.
That's a great message, and thank you for sharing that. You know, one of the things I tell my clients all the time is a business is an asset.
Mm-hmm.
And if you manage it the right way, it will become far and away your most significant asset. And businesses, okay, or deals, they can lead to a deal. And if someone comes along and offers you an opportunity to buy your business, make a business decision. And the emotional component, the emotional attachment that you spoke to, I've heard a lot, and it's caused a lot of people to miss out on an opportunity that would have been a really good one. Because at a fundamental level, the reason why you start a business is to generate a profit. We've covered a lot of ground. We have a lot more to go. Where would you like to go next?
Well, I guess continue from where we left off.
Okay.
Specifically related to when I started the practice and got really politically involved,
Okay.
really as a hobby for many years. But it was about 5 years later where I got involved with a mayoral campaign in Houston, and that really kind of opened up the floodgates for me and my firm. Mm-hmm. My practice literally transitioned from a transactional practice to a government affairs practice overnight. We had the opportunity to start representing major well-known companies, AT&T, Southwest Airlines, United Healthcare, United States Gypsum, and other well-known
Big names.
companies. Yes. And so that has been great. And interestingly enough, a couple of years ago when I should say, back in December 2014, when President Obama announced that Cuba and the United States were going to normalize relations, those same clients started asking me, how can they get into the Cuban market? And I didn't know. But I already knew the mechanics of how to do it.
Right.
So I went down to Cuba, got really lucky on my first visit down there. I actually took a client with me, a major energy company here in Houston, and was successful in helping them get the proper licensing from the U.S. Department of Commerce to export their products into the Cuban market. Of course, when the new administration came in, that had a very chilling effect on the Cuban United States relationship, and as a result of that, we transitioned into doing work for other companies and working with other countries in the Latin American and Caribbean markets.
So we're just touching the tip of the iceberg, right? Can't wait to hear the second half of that. We'll be right back. Welcome back. And Felix, I must tell you, I've learned something new about you today.
Which was?
You're a master storyteller.
Oh, thank you.
This is great.
Thank you.
This is really good. Great information. So where we left off was you took a client down to Cuba. There was a change in the administration in the White House. The political winds shifted. And it sounded like your business shifted too.
Oh, it did. It did. We invested quite a bit into the Cuban market because so many clients were asking us about Cuba. Everyone was excited because it's been an uncharted territory for over 60 years.
Right.
There are 11 million people on the island, and so these major corporations were thinking, this is a great opportunity for us to take advantage.
New markets.
Absolutely a new market. Of course, when the Trump administration took over, they had a different position and posture with Cuba, which, as I mentioned, had a chilling effect on everything that we were doing. But because we had invested so much time in Cuba, so for example, we would go down there and we would host events, have receptions. I would speak at their energy conferences, host workshops, and we had the opportunity to interface with diplomats from other countries, particularly diplomats from South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. So when things started to slow down in Cuba, we realized we have all of these relationships with the diplomatic corps from Latin America and the Caribbean. We can do the same thing for our clients in those markets that we were doing in Cuba. And that took another turn because we then realized that we can also help companies who are in other markets who are interested in doing business in the United States.
So you made an investment on the ground in Cuba.
Yes.
You got to know the locals. You infused yourself into the language, the culture, and the political scene, and you built relationships, and you were able to leverage those relationships into new and meaningful relationships with other Spanish-speaking countries.
That's exactly right. So I'll give you one example. We went down there for this conference, this energy conference, and I'm meeting with the ministers of energy there. And so the following year, they were planning on doing another conference. There was a company out of London called Global Event Partners that were partnering with the Cubans to put on their energy conference. This is a different type of energy conference. The one I originally went to was around renewables. The one they were planning on doing was on traditional oil and gas.
Fossil fuels?
Yes.
Okay.
And so the company out of London, Global Event Partners, meets with the Cubans and say, hey, are there any American companies that we can talk to who we can start potentially partnering with to try to attract American companies to come to the United States? Well, they gave us the call. And as a result of that introduction, we are now a strategic partner with Global Event Partners to collaborate with them on all of their energy conferences globally, particularly in the Western Hemisphere.
So relationships have been the driving force with just about everything you've done.
Absolutely.
Going back to college.
Absolutely.
A relationship with your mentor, right, introduced you or got you involved in student government politics. And from that experience, you went on post-college to form a PAC, right? You're outside the United States. You're meeting diplomats from all over the world, and you're establishing business opportunities with people because of relationships.
Yep.
And I have a feeling that what you're about to talk about next, once again, is being driven by relationships.
Well, when we spoke last time, I shared that relationships are the currency of life. And I totally believe that I am where I am today because of the relationships that I have in my life. And so I honor those relationships. Some of those are not always relationships that transition or turn into something that's related to business, right? Sometimes you invest in people who are not going to necessarily benefit you monetarily, but they could benefit you in other ways, right? And so, look, at the end of the day, we're all going to be gone. We want to be able to look back and say, you know, what kind of person was I? And I believe that the quality of your life is going to be predicated on the kind of relationships you've had.
That's your legacy, right? Is that a difficult skill to learn? Is that an art? Is that a craft? Is that a difficult skill to learn? The art of building relationships?
That's a really good question. Frankly, I think it comes a little naturally for me.
Okay.
But there are some things that I learned along the way. And so, for example, and this is a lesson you learn really early in growing up in the South Bronx, right? When things go down, you will know really quickly who is on your team or not, right? And so, look, I have friends who may not be the most perfect people in the world, but I know without a shadow of a doubt that if something hits the fan, they're going to be people who will have my back and I will have their back. And to me, that's invaluable. And I've taken those lessons throughout my life. In politics, there are people who I'll invest in who I know will lose. But it's not about them winning, it's about investing in the person and the relationship.
Human capital. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
A lot of ground. Great information, great stories, multiple takeaways for everyone to learn from. And I think there are going to be a lot of people who will be interested in establishing a relationship with you after this show. Where would you like to go next, Felix?
Well, as we talked last week, we talked about how we're now working with Urban Capital Network and really helping entrepreneurs going back to
your transactional business.
Absolutely, helping entrepreneurs grow in the next phase of their business.
Okay. And what was the appeal? What was the interest?
The interest was primarily helping entrepreneurs go from a point where they are now established and being able to scale.
Why is Houston becoming a mecca for hubs, innovation, and venture capital?
It is, one, because we're the fourth largest city in the country. We are an international we're an international city, and we have a lot of entrepreneurs here, and we have a lot of capital here, and so it makes sense for us to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are before us.
Final thoughts?
Thank you for having me again, and looking forward to continuing the dialogue.
This has been great. We might have to have you come back. There's an argument that we need to settle.
Clearly we do.
That we need to settle. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break.
Let's be honest. Making a lukewarm marketing video is fairly simple. But who wants lukewarm marketing? Instead, how about something that conveys your unique message? Well, that takes creativity, and creative is what we are. We design custom logos. We even offer professional print services. Our goal is to showcase how good your idea is, no matter what your product is. Whether it's social media marketing for a new author or the artwork for the book itself, we can help. If you've created a new app and need a TV commercial to show it to the world, we can help.
Now they're Stork Advisor.
If you're a photographer trying to show off your work in a unique way, we can help. Need a promo for your TV show? We can help with that too.
It's Couch Time with Sonia.
We're an artistic bunch and we love the creative process. We're not trying to be the best in Houston. We're trying to be the best for you.
What a fabulous guest Felix Chevalier was today on Straight to the Top. He's an innovator, he's an influencer, he's a disruptor, and you know what? We have to settle a score. I have a score to settle with my buddy from the South Bronx, and I'm from Brooklyn because the South Bronx was not the birthplace of hip-hop. We invite you to become an RMI client today. Join the movement, get connected, and you too will take your business straight to the top. Good night.